If you guys can hear the chainsaw outside, I do apologise. Anyway, do you ever ask yourself the question, why am I here? What am I doing? Who am I supposed to be? And why does everything just feel wrong? Today I want to answer your life's questions and help you to actually reconnect with your soul and who you were meant to be. So let's get into it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to title this video, God Wants You to Be Weird. That's my plan anyway. And I firmly believe this. We are in an era right now where everything has become so bland and devoid of soul and just empty and grey. Have you not noticed with wokeism, everything has just become a taboo? Like, you can't make any jokes anymore. Humour is going out the window. Everybody cares so much about perfectionism, and to the point where you see this thing called iPhone face, where girls are now getting plastic surgery so that they can all look exactly the same, like a carbon copy of one another. They all have to have the same nose, the same lips, the same makeup, the same outfits. And I will admit, I was kind of falling into it a little bit. I was giving into the fear. The fear that society puts on us. And when I say society, I'm not just talking from like a liberal perspective, because I'm not a liberal. What I'm really talking about is the lizards. The ones that are controlling everything and putting people into this box of limitations, of emptiness. This era will probably go down in history as something that everybody just wants to forget about, to be quite honest. I mean, have you not noticed that people have become quite fanatical about vintage things? And the fashion nowadays, I'm noticing a rebellion where some people are starting to dress like they're from the 60s or maybe the 80s or the 90s. Because I think everyone collectively just can't stand this era because it is so repressive. But what a lot of people don't realise is that they are repressing themselves. And this comes from deep programming from when you were a child. And no, I'm not going to blame your parents. I'm going to blame the system. And here is my example. I'm going to tell you a story about my childhood. Very brief, don't worry, but very insightful. So when I was little, I was extremely weird. I was my true self. Before I went to school, I had psychic abilities that I do not remember, okay? I've gone into this in previous videos. I actually had imaginary friends that I would speak to, and my parents would watch me for hours speak to these spirits. And my parents have told me this is gospel, this 100% was happening. I was not pretending. I wasn't the type of kid to lie. And the weirdest thing is that the moment that I went to school, it stopped. Dead in its tracks. And another weird thing is, like I say, I have absolutely no memory of this whatsoever. Couldn't pull any of it from my memory now. Which in a way kind of makes me feel sad. But anyway. So in primary school, the first year, my parents were hauled into the school because the teachers were worried and concerned that I didn't really seem like I was in reality. I wasn't in touch with reality, is what they said. They said that whenever they'd ask me a question, I would respond and say, I don't know, I'm a dog, or I'm Mickey Mouse. I always wanted to be an actress. The teachers said that I didn't fit in at all and that all the other kids know what's going on in the news and in the world, and I just don't really seem very interested in any of that. I mean, really, what 6-year-old would? What adult is interested in the news? But anyway, I'm just gonna change the lighting. Hold on. Is that a bit better? So I went through most of primary school getting shouted at by teachers. I did have some friends, but I was definitely odd, or deemed as odd. And most of the time I just didn't really understand why I was there, in school, aka prison, and I didn't conform. But then something happened in year 4 where they were doing a Lion King production. And if you know me, you know that I love the Lion King, and I'm also very good at illustration, have been since I was really little. But the teachers had asked me and given me a quest to do these massive drawings of Timon and Pumbaa and Simba for the Lion King production. And obviously, because this was something I was actually interested in, I went ahead with it. And somehow this had become a situation where I was suddenly being praised for participating and playing the game that the teachers wanted me to play. And that praise felt good. And somewhere along the line, I think I must have started being a good kid in school. It didn't last for long, just saying. But by the end of primary school, the same horrible teacher that had said that I wasn't in touch with reality hauled my parents in again to tell them that I am actually now the most mature student in the school. That somehow I've had all of this personal growth and that everyone is so proud of me. And the lesson is this: beware of the praise that you get from authority, because it is a sword. It is a sword unto the soul. Getting praise from authority can actually be far more powerful than being coerced by authority. And I can run parallels with this all day long. You think of that teacher's pet in school. They get praised by the teacher over and over again. They're the star student. Do you start to notice that that student actually eventually starts to get treated worse because they've become a doormat? And they also put the most pressure on themselves because they're hungry for that praise. And what actually happens is they've disconnected themselves from themselves and what they want to do. They're denying themselves. And that brings a feeling of emptiness. So what fills that emptiness? The praise from authority. Think about those nurses in 2020 that were being praised for being so good at their job, for saving people, when in actual fact a lot of them were being given time off work. In fact, a lot of them had that much time on their hands that they were able to do little TikTok dances. And I can tell you this from experience, right? I dance properly. And learning the choreography for a dance does take time. It takes time to learn the steps for choreography and to actually then record a version where everyone is actually in sync. So it's really shocking, to be honest, that they managed to save so many lives while also suddenly having the time to learn all of this choreography and post it on TikTok. I mean, I really feel like I need to change the lighting again, so I don't know. Another example is that colleague of yours that bums off the boss, constantly seeking approval from the boss. Do you ever notice that the boss starts to treat him or her, like a lapdog? Do you ever notice also that he always gets the worst jobs? He gets more work put on him. Now, this is something that I want to clarify. Throughout my life, I have hopped between this pattern of seeking approval from authority and then becoming the biggest rebel against it. It just goes back and forth. By the time that I got to high school, I just want to clarify this. I was the baddest kid in school. No one can take that title from me. That is mine. But this was when I was going through my goth era, and I was the weirdest version of me during this era. I still kind of am. Just not so much on the outside. I was up against the teachers every single day. I was up against the kids. When I was a goth, I used to get shouted at in the street. Someone actually threw a bottle at me once. Thankfully, it didn't hit. But that's the kind of stuff that you get when you're a goth. And I didn't care. I didn't care for the other people's approval at all, because the approval came from here. I approved of me. And that is the message that I want to put across here. When you start honouring yourself and your weirdness and embracing it, you don't need these other people's opinions. These other people that are judging you are so irrelevant as long as you are true to yourself. But a lot of people go years and years and years not being true to themselves, pretending to be someone else, pretending to fit into this pathetic, boring box. And for what? What is it for? So you can get approval from people that you don't even really like. And this is what I want to say when it relates to God. Why does God want you to be weird? I'll tell you why. God is the ultimate creator, and if you look at all of his creations, there are so many different wild and wonderful things that appear in nature in this world. What on earth would be the point in creating carbon copies of the same thing over and over again? Even if you look at the same plant, there are different versions of a cheese plant, and even if it's the same genus, the plant will still be different. Visually, every single person looks different. So why on earth would you not all have different personalities? So in conclusion, stay weird. And if you're not weird, be weird. Thank you to everyone who likes, comments, shares and subscribes, and I will see you in the next video. Love you, bye. You know I'll be